Frankenstein. Everyone knows the name. It evokes thoughts of monsters and gothic horror. Centuries after 18-year-old Mary Shelley created her timeless classic, people are still interested in the immortal man-made monster. There are currently 2 Frankenstein movies in production. Guillermo del Toro's interpretation of the character, starring Oscar Isaac, Christoph Waltz, and Charles Dance, will debut on Netflix in November of this year. Del Toro has handled similar subject matter before, such as The Shape of Water in 2017 and Pinocchio in 2022. Also, an updated version starring Christian Bale, Penelope Cruz, and Peter Sarsgaard, written and directed by Maggie Gyllenhaal, is coming out in March of 2026. Called The Bride, this version will be set in 1930 Chicago. It's inspired by the 1935 classic film The Bride of Frankenstein, which is celebrating its 90th anniversary this year. Generation after generation, new fans discover this tragic character. The book has never been out of print. The monster's popularity is unending. The Frankenstein Monster was created by Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley in 1818 in her groundbreaking Gothic novel Frankenstein, The Modern Prometheus. Guillermo del Toro has said Frankenstein is his favorite story, and what's more important, it's my personal favorite book. This story is often credited as giving birth to the science fiction genre. But why, you may well ask, has the monster stayed so relevant to pop culture generation after generation, century after century? Let's take a look together at the appeal of this timeless creature to determine why we're still so fascinated by him and what the Frankenstein monster represents. I'd argue that Shelley's immortal creature is the greatest monster of all time. Don't agree? Let's dive into it and maybe I can convince you. And if the mood strikes you, like and subscribe to my channel. First of all, Mary Shelley's creature is unique. There are so many vampires, werewolves, zombies, mummies, ghosts, demons, dragons, and other nasty beasts, but there's only one Frankenstein monster. He's not from a particular variety of monster, he's a character. The monster is as well known a figure as Sherlock Holmes or James Bond or Superman. While the numerous film versions give us varying interpretations of the creature regarding appearance, intelligence, and personality, they all follow the basic blueprint of a man-made creature who was alienated from the rest of society, unable to ever find peace in a world that fears him, and so he lashes out in anger and frustration. Now, let's take a look at that long-established model to see what the monster really represents. It's true that many monsters are metaphors for something. Vampires represent sexuality, and zombies embody mindless conformity, and werewolves symbolize the conflict between our reasoning mind and our primal nature. The Frankenstein monster represents several things. He remains a significant metaphor for many aspects of the modern world. First of all, Frankenstein is a commentary about personal responsibility, particularly parental responsibility. Victor Frankenstein wants to create life so he can be immortalized as the father of the future, but he wants to do this without taking responsibility for what he's created. He runs away from the monster when it first comes to life because it's ugly. The monster finds itself alone in the world, without any guidance or affection. Victor forgets that creating life means you have a responsibility to that life, like a parent has to a child. It's a fact that kids who grow up without strong parental figures will be more likely to commit crimes and resort to violence. The monster was abandoned on the day of his birth, thus becoming a violent, vengeful creature. If Victor had taken responsibility for his creation, that creation might not have become a monster. Neither Victor nor the monster had the love of a mother. Victor's mother died when he was young, just as author Mary Shelley had to grow up without a mother. Shelley's mother died in childbirth. There are no mothers in this book at all. Shelley's book illustrates the emotional damage of not having responsible, loving parents. Secondly, Frankenstein is a warning about the risks of playing God and the dangers of science and technology run amok. Victor Frankenstein wants to create life without thinking of the ramifications of what he's planning. Frankenstein is the precursor to stories like Jurassic Park and The Island of Dr. Moreau, where some ambitious scientist creates monsters he can't control. As Dr. Malcolm reminded us in Jurassic Park, they were so focused on whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think whether or not they should. Victor also doesn't consider the danger of creating something with a mind of its own. What happens when the thing you've created has its own wants and desires? This question echoes the modern discussions about AI and the potential dangers of building something so intelligent that it could rebel against you. An intelligent being can potentially decide to destroy you. Family is another important theme in Frankenstein. Victor may not have had a mother, but he did have a supportive father, a loving fiancé, and 2 brothers. This was his lifeline growing up. However, things started to go bad when he cut himself off from his family, working alone on his secret experiment and becoming so obsessed with his grand project that he lost his perspective and forgot the human connection needed to instill morality in science. When Victor saw how ugly his creation was, he did not want to claim it as his own family and so ran off, leaving the monster with no one to call family of its own. Later, when the monster meets the DeLacy family, who seem kind and well-adjusted, the creature hopes they will accept him. He calls them his protectors and learns about life by covertly watching them from hiding. They are the closest thing he ever has to a family, although they don't even know he exists. When they ultimately reject him, the monster finally goes over the edge into violence and evil. Another important aspect of the book is about prejudice and judging by appearance. The monster is shunned and hated by everyone because of what he looks like. Much like the title characters of The Phantom of the Opera, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, and Beauty and the Beast, the creature's life has become defined by his deformity. No one can see past his appearance. He is different, therefore he is rejected. The book illustrates the damage that can be done when you reduce someone to nothing more than their physical characteristics. In the book, the creature says, "All men hate the wretched. How much must I be hated, who am miserable beyond all living things? Even you, my creator, detest and spurn me, the creature to whom thou art bound by ties only dissoluble by the annihilation of one of us." The only person who seems willing to accept the creature is the old blind man DeLacy, who can't see his frightening appearance. But even that relationship falls apart when the man's children come and react with horror at the sight of the monster. His one chance at friendship is gone. Regarding friendship, an important person in Victor's life is his best friend Clerval. Clerval is the loyal friend who sticks with Victor through all his tribulations. When Victor becomes sick, Clerval tends to him for months. When Victor leaves his home in Geneva a second time on his trip to Scotland, Clerval is once again his loyal companion. Clerval represents loyalty and friendship. Victor has what the monster never could have, a faithful friend. In the 1935 film The Bride of Frankenstein, starring Boris Karloff, the monster's endless search for companionship is its major story arc. In the book, Robert Walton the explorer also laments that he has no close friends to commiserate with, which is why he takes a liking to Victor when he rescues him from the northern ice. They bond over their obsessive natures. The novel also touches on the danger of obsession. Victor has such an obsessive desire to create life that he refuses to stop, despite the effect it has on his physical and mental health. He is isolated and alone, but refuses to cease his experiments and rejoin his friends and family. He has no one to be the voice of reason. This leads to the death of everyone he loves. Similarly, Walton the explorer is obsessed with discovering something no one else has discovered, and it almost causes the doom of his crew, but he learns his lesson in time. The book also deals with issues of wealth and privilege versus poverty. Victor and Walton are both rich. They are free to pursue their ambitions, erroneously believing that their privilege will protect them from their mistakes. It doesn't. The DeLacys, on the other hand, are dirt poor, living in their little cabin in the woods, having escaped from the French Revolution. The old blind father and his adult children have very little and are so content with their simple lives of poverty. They are a loving family with no ambition except to feed themselves and survive another year. The monster admires the DeLacy clan and helpfully delivers firewood to their door. This makes their ultimate rejection of him all the more painful. The one thing both the rich and poor have in common is their fear of what's different. This book is a contemplation of death, which Mary Shelley had too much experience with, despite only being 18 years old when she wrote this novel. Not only had she already lost her mother, but her first child also died as an infant. Mary Shelley was married to Percy Shelley, whose first wife killed herself. In the book, Victor wants to create life because of the death of his mother. Throughout the story, he loses everyone he cares about: his brother, his best friend, his new wife, and his father. Each death affects Victor, dragging him further into despair until he breaks completely. Another aspect of the classic novel is that it deals with loneliness and the need to be heard. The monster, like most of us, wants to be heard. We all want the world to know we're there. We want attention. That's the appeal of social media and why most people want to be YouTube influencers. We want to share our thoughts and opinions with others. The monster is angry because he is lonely. He wants someone to hear his lament of pain. He wants to be loved and heard and understood, just like we all do. He never gets that opportunity and so becomes violent and murderous. Frankenstein is also the prototype of modern slasher movies. In the novel, the monster is an engine of death. He covertly stalks his victims with patience, picking them off one by one, with his incredible strength. The Frankenstein Monster is the model for iconic slashers like Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees. All these reasons and many more explain why Frankenstein, the modern Prometheus, is one of the great classic novels of all time, and why we're still getting film adaptations 227 years later. There have been so many variations of the Frankenstein monster. Some worked and some haven't. What will Guillermo del Toro and Maggie Gyllenhaal do with a character that is unique and different from all the previous versions? We'll see soon enough. Either way, it won't be the end of the legend of Frankenstein. But this is the end of my video. And if you want to be as inspiring as Mary Shelley, please think about liking or commenting or maybe even subscribing. If not, the monster will get you. And remember, viewers good, subscribers good.